Heavenly Father, all our lives we dedicate to Thee. All our labors, all our joys and woes, all our pleasures, all our melody. Make us each a channel of Thy peace. When in darkness, guide us from above. Where there's sorrow, may we sow Thy joy. Where there's hatred, may we share Thy love. Lord Most High, our Heavenly Father, all our lives we dedicate to Thee. All our labors, all our joys and woes, all our pleasure, all our melody. Make us each a channel of Thy peace. When in darkness, guide us from above. Where there's sorrow, may we sow Thy joy. Where there's hatred,
the first chant is, "You fill my heart with music." I think that's the one I was going to do. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows gone, in joy I live ever free. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows gone, in joy I live ever free. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows gone, in joy I live ever free. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows gone, in joy I live ever free. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows gone, in joy I live ever free. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows gone, in joy I live ever free. Il mio cuore è tuo, Signore, sempre tuo. Cantando a te, amando te, nella gioia del ciel vivrò. Il mio cuore è tuo, Signore, sempre tuo. Cantando a te, amando te, nella gioia del ciel vivrò. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows come, in joy I live ever free. Fill my heart with music, I dance through life with Thee. I sing your song and sorrows come, in joy I live ever free. I sing your song and sorrows
It's wonderful to be here. My name is Nayaswami Pranaba, and this is Nayaswami Parvati. And we currently reside in Ananda village. It's been a long current. So today's reading from the Rays of the One Light by Swami Ananda with commentaries on the Bible and Bhagavad Gita is an interesting one. How democratic is truth? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. We live in an age when people assume that knowledge should be available equally to all. In matters susceptible of judgment by normal common sense, however, everyone knows there are exceptions. Access to a control room for intercontinental missiles is limited by universal consent to very few. Access to the controls of a passenger airliner is limited to those with the necessary knowledge for operating them, and also to those with proper authorization. If people don't see the disadvantages of making more subtle knowledge universally available, it is only because they are ignorant of the risks involved. In the case of subtle knowledge, the main disadvantage in making it universally available is the harm it might do to one who isn't ready for it, and who might even mock it. True, by mocking truth, he might undermine the faith of a few truth seekers. But then, such tests can also be beneficial as a mean of strengthening faith. Again, true, the clever doubter's misrepresentation of those truths may dissuade a few seekers from following the spiritual path. But if a seeker really is sincere, he will recognize the truth eventually because it resonates with his own being. No, the greatest problem accrues to the shallow doubter himself. To give him an opportunity to affirm his ignorance might only estrange him even more from the truth, delaying the time when he will turn, as all people must eventually, to the light. Thus the scriptures advise not secrecy, but discretion in the sharing of truth. Jesus Christ says in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 7, "Give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you." And Sri Krishna says in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, "Never speak of these truths to one who is without self-control or devotion, who renders no service, who does not care to hear, or who speaks ill of me." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Yeah, we've had a lovely time starting in Thousand Oaks with the ashram, and then yesterday a full day of class and Kriya initiation, and now today Sunday service. So it's really just very wonderful to be able to spend time with you all and to see you in different settings. I'd like to begin, actually, I'm reading from a piece of paper because then I don't have to put my glasses on. So this is from, take them on, put them off, This is from Whispers from Eternity, and I thought it was very lovely. Rock me to sleep on thy bosom of peace. Thou hast come into my temple at last. The doors of my senses are open wide. The bird of darkness has taken wing. I tune the harp strings of my heart and sing a song of my ages-old love for thee. My song will be newly costumed with the fresh notes of my soul. Wavelets of my song will dance in rhythm within the heaving of thy great ocean of cosmic consciousness. Growing to great billows of devotion, they will move steadily to thy shore. O lullaby of all soothing, rising, crashing waves, Sing to me the song of my beloved mother, eternity. O anthem of divine love, rock me sonorously in thy cradle of cosmic vibration, and bring all my restless delusions to sleep at last on thy great bosom of peace. So there's a lot of different ways that we can talk about this, but I have to say that the quote from the scriptures of Jesus of don't give things unto dogs and cast your pearls before swine just kind of reminded me of growing up spiritually with Swami Kriyananda. You know, it's interesting because we can hear things and go along for a time and kind of start to lull into sleep slightly. You know, it's nice, it's wonderful, it's, you know, oh, isn't it inspiring, all of that. But these are truths which shake the world and really shake our world. And we need to be, as Master said, when he would, during his lectures, run out onto the stage and say, "How feels everyone? Awake and ready." Because Swami said he didn't want to talk to people that didn't have the right energy. There would be no point, you know. And I remember going to another lecture of another spiritual teacher of some sort, and he was basically yelling his talk. And I thought, he's doing that because people are asleep. And I know you all aren't asleep, but no, I mean, you wouldn't be here if you were, really, truly. But it's important to remember that the spiritual teachings, they take vigor, they take vibrancy, they take us being and continuing to be awake and open and aware of what we're doing in our lives every day. And I say that because I was thinking, I remember when I was coming on the spiritual path, and I liked spirituality. You know, I finally realized, oh, my life should be about spirituality. But I went on in that kind of level of things, enjoyment, of just kind of exploring things. And I went on for probably a couple of years, just exploring. I was still in college. I graduated, and you know, I got a job, and luckily, I had enough common sense that I knew once I graduated, I had to get a job because I had to support myself. But I didn't feel any inspiration of, you know, oh wow, I'd really like to do this, or you know, be that, or whatever. There was just nothing there. So I got a humdrum job, and I worked for the welfare department in San Jose, California. And that was a really good thing because it drove me to realize that I could not live like that. I mean, yeah, and I was doing good things, you know, what people call good things. And but I just felt like there is no inspiration here for me. And so at a certain point, I came to that place in my life where I thought, okay, this is it. You know, and interestingly enough, when I look back, I was 24 years old. So those 12-year cycles can kick in at a certain point. And, you know, 12 years, you know, you shift into a different time in high school and da-da-da. But at any rate, so I just thought, I can't live like this. And it wasn't just that job. It was the whole idea of just having a job and making money of any sort. Didn't matter if it was much or little or less, but just doing that, and then you pay your rent and you buy food, and then you get up and do that again every day after day, and with no inspiration. And so I just thought, you know, it has to change, but I don't know how. And I knew that meditation was important, but I didn't know how to do it, and I wasn't focused enough to make it happen, you know, to find somebody to meditate with, all of that. So anyway, I just said, okay, I'm quitting my job. I was living with someone at the time. I said, you know what? By the end of the year, I'm done. I don't know what we'll do, but that's it. And so I said, we need to save every penny we can until that time. And so we did. And we got together. This was in 1970. We saved $5,000 in 6 months. And that was a lot of money at that time. And I thought, great, great. Now it gives us a chance, gives me a chance to really explore what's trying to happen. But I was desperate, yeah, which is a good thing spiritually. It's good to be desperate. No, because then opportunities, you put out that magnetism and that soul call, and God responds. God is conscious and is aware of when we do that. And they're what I like to think of as windows of opportunity begin to appear. And they come in the most unusual places. So, and we have to be ready for them. We have to be awake and ready, because they're only windows of opportunity. And if we don't go through that window, then it just closes over and moves on, and life moves on, and we're not able to grow. We're not able to fulfill what we really know we want to do inwardly as a soul, is what I'm talking about here. So at any rate, after I quit, it was like, ooh, now what? So we thought, well, we'll just travel up and down the West Coast, and we'll look for a community that has meditation as its base, and all of that. And so we did that. We traveled up and down camping, and we were looking basically for some place like Ananda, but we didn't know about Ananda. So anyway, we traveled up and down, and all the time I'm thinking, what is it? What's going on? But right before we did that, we were walking around the school. I went to San Jose State, and so we were walking around, and there was a guy there, and he was in a van. Back of the van was open, and he was selling books out of the back of the van. And I thought, oh, that's fun. So we walked around, saw what it was, and it was the book Be Here Now. It had just come out, just been published, and so quickly that he was selling them out of the back of his van. Anyway, so I thought, well, that looks interesting, so I bought it. And interestingly enough, I realized just recently that it wasn't the whole book. The book was kind of odd to me and had all these drawings and, I don't know, vague kind of spiritual concepts and stuff. But what really got me was the introduction, where Ram Dass, the American Ram Dass, who wrote the book, talks about his spiritual journey. And it's just a couple of pages long. But when I read it, I thought, because he talks about his resistance and the hard time. He went to India looking for the guru and the romance of the spiritual life, as Pranaba was talking about yesterday, and it was just horrible. It was hard physically, and he didn't, he met this guru who this young guy was introducing him to, and he was an old man laying on the ground or on a little dais with a blanket wrapped around him. And he looked at that and he just said, why am I here? What is going on? And then he began, because he couldn't get out, he couldn't leave easily. He had come in a Jeep and it was borrowed and he didn't know where he was, and so he had to kind of stay around. I forget exactly how it evolved, but he ended up spending some time around the great saint Nimkarli Baba. And so, little by little, he started to feel the vibration of that man, of that saint, of that yogi. And he started to realize that this was what he had been looking for. And so he talked about his evolution as how he understood finally that this was a guru, this was somebody who could teach him, could guide him, and that he needed to be really receptive and change his entire life. And that's the scary part, about spiritual life, is that, and we all know this inwardly, the ego is the scary part. That's the part that says, oh no, I'm going to have to change my life again? You know, uh-oh, and what will that mean, and how will that look, and all of that. But Ram Dass was, again, so desperate that he just had to go into that flow and go deeper and deeper into it. I mean, he came to India as a LSD Harvard professor, you know, just experimenting with all this other stuff, which really has not hardly anything, really nothing to do with the spiritual life, because it's inner. And so he ended up really loving his guru and understanding what was going on. And it just took time, days and weeks, and going away and coming back and all of that. But when I read about that, it just was like one of those windows. It just popped open, and I thought, oh, that's what I'm looking for, the guru-disciple relationship, and it's about devotion. And I hadn't known any of that before, but it just clicked. It was interesting. And that, I'm saying this because those moments can happen for everybody. They do happen for everybody if you're looking for that. So I was in a time of desperation, and poof, there it was. And so I saw it, and I thought, oh, wow, well, that's what I'm looking for. But it wasn't time yet. And so we had to go on this camping trip. We went clear up to BC and camped along the way and didn't find anything. I mean, I'm sure at that point in 1971, there were hundreds of little groups that were communities and meditation and all that kind of stuff. We didn't find them. We just traveled, came back to the Bay Area where we had been before, and I thought, well, what now? And then another little window opened, and I saw at a bookstore, spiritual bookstores were big then, and so we'd go to spiritual bookstores. So there was this little flyer, and literally it wasn't much bigger than that. Yoga and meditation, 6-week course, $25. And I thought, well, I don't know about yoga postures, but meditation, yes. And so we went to the class, and on the way, my friend said, oh, let's go to this bookstore, spiritual bookstore. And I said, you know what? I don't think I can stand to go to another spiritual bookstore. I want a life, a spiritual life, not a book, you know. Anyway, but we went in, and so I looked, and there were, you know, right in the beginning, spiritual biographies, autobiographies, stuff like that. And so I looked, and I thought, oh, well, you know, biographies are always fun to read, so I'll just pick one of those. And then somebody had showed me 2 or 3 years before the autobiography. They pointed it out to me, and I looked at it. They said, oh, if you want to read a good spiritual book, that's a very good one. And so I looked at it, and I thought, well, this was 2 or 3 years before. I thought, well, he looks like a woman, and India, you know, India is so emotional, and I don't know. Anyway, I never read it. I went to Zen and, you know, things that were more impersonal and meditation and all that. And so I look, and there on the shelf is the autobiography. And it's thick, you know, it's big, it's inexpensive. I thought, great, I'll take that. That was recommended, so I'll do that. But then we went to the class. And the man who taught it, Kersi Bulsara, Indian man, and he opened his briefcase, and it was full of autobiographies. And I thought, oh, wow, maybe something is finally happening. Anyway, we took the 6-week class. It was Raja Yoga, basically, what Swami had developed lessons on. Yoga postures in the beginning, a break, everybody brought little snacks, and then a Raja Yoga course. And over the course of that time, Kersi told us about Ananda. But again, it's really interesting how Divine Mother says, no, you have to put out more energy. No, a little bit more. Come on, you can do it. And so he made it sound difficult to go there. He said, well, you know, there's this community up there, and, you know, you can go there, but you better be together, and you better have money, and you better bring a business would be a good idea, and I'm going, what? I mean, well, we have a little money. I'm kind of together, I think. And business, I don't know anything about business, but it was sounding like, wow, this could be it. And so after the 6-week class series, which, by the way, my friends, was right about now, 51 years ago. Yeah, right about now, end of July. And then we, on the about first or second week of August, we drove up, and it took forever to get there. I mean, the highways were really not that great, and 49 was, more like this. And so we got there, and then there was an evening program, and then Swami Kriyananda, I think, may have done the evening program, and then he also did the Sunday service. But that weekend and one more, I just felt like, and I had, by the way, during that class, I took the autobiography home and I read it clear through, and it was like, this is it. This is it. Yeah, wow, this is it. And so going to Ananda, what I felt there was, I thought, it feels like the autobiography to me, the consciousness, the vibration. And it was about Swami Kriyananda, direct disciple. I mean, wow, how many direct disciples of Yogananda are running around, but he was. But it was also, and the way he gave the teachings, very clear, very simple, very doable. You can do this, and you should do this. And also, I just felt like it was also about, I saw people around him that were like me. It was, I remember Jyotish, I remember Seva, I remember maybe Devi. There were a couple of others that I just remember their faces from those very first times. But I thought, oh, well, not only is he saying that, he's way beyond where I'm at, but they're here and they look like they're happy and doing this. And so I thought, I can do this. And so then next, as things evolved, the next year, 1972, is when I and my friend ended up moving to Ananda Village. So it's been 50 years. Anyway, very nice. But also just feeling like the teachings that are given, and thinking about Master Yogananda and the vibration that he brought to America in the 1920s, and just how he talked about the teachings. It was like nothing anyone had ever heard before. That's why he attracted thousands of people, because he brought the very cream, the essence of deep spirituality from India, but put it in a way of, hey, let's do this. Affirmations, meditation, Kriya Yoga. You're giving, it's not just philosophy. I mean, there were a number of groups in the 70s around, and they were doing things, but nothing like that. And so what I found was that I was walking into a community that was beginning to be built, and a work that was beginning to be built by a direct disciple of an avatar. And he was saying to us, okay, let's do things now. If you see something here that needs doing, do it. So he was very, Swami Kriyananda, very active, very dynamic, just saying, yeah, oh, we need someone to do this. Oh, you do that, or why don't you try that? And it was never, I'm the direct disciple of Yogananda, and I'm giving you the teachings, and now I'm telling you what to do. No, he did it. He was doing most of it. And then he invited us to come along with him. And not everybody did. Not everybody got that call and wanted to do that. Some people felt like he was just an egotist, telling people what to do, and, all the plans and the vision and all of that, when in essence, it was mainly that he had 10 times more energy than anybody else. And he was clear about what life was about, clear about the path, clear about what he had gained from Yogananda, clear about the teachings, clear about all of that. And he just, but in a very humble way, kept offering that very dynamically, a lot of magnetism. And so that's really what we're all doing. That's why we're here, is because Yogananda brought something that wasn't just a nice way to think about life and, things to contemplate, philosophical, and because there's a lot of that from India that has come this way. But it isn't dynamic, and it isn't what's trying to happen in our time. We all need to be living these teachings. Otherwise, what do they mean? They're nice ideas, but we need to be living that. And so Swami Kriyananda would also make dramatic statements. None in particular are coming to mind right now, but like Jesus saying, don't give things to dogs and don't, cast your pearls before swine. He was just waking people up because he was always for everyone. When you read the longer readings about this topic, it's talking about the fact that Jesus was very much always opening to people. He cared about individual souls, but he could only offer them the truths that he had to offer to those that were awake. And so otherwise it wouldn't come, and people would take it differently, just like what I experienced with Swami Kriyananda. The people that were awake and ready and wanted what Yogananda had brought, they were so grateful for what Swami Kriyananda brought. Other people came to Ananda to check it out and all of that, and they had their own version of what they wanted to do spiritually. And so they weren't as open. And so you say things, I'm sure that there were quite a number of people that were deeply offended by what Jesus said because they were one of the dogs or swine, It's like, whoa, what are you talking about? But that isn't what he was saying. Yeah, he was saying, be awake and ready, dynamic, open, and really accept the teachings that are coming to you. Be able to do that. And really one of the biggest ways that we're able to do that is by opening the heart, devotion. It has to be there, really from the beginning. And Yogananda, when he lectured, people felt that from him. They felt he was somehow able to combine devotion with all of the more mechanical, the techniques and the, affirmation and, the whispers, all of that. They're devotional, but then he was able to really weave that in and make that part of it. That you really, like he would say, the time for knowing God has come. And each of you individually needs to make love to God. And it's like, wow, that's really personal, But he was saying, not only am I saying that to you, but I'm giving you the way to do it. The techniques, energization, Hong Sa, Om technique, Kriya Yoga, all of that makes it possible to experience devotion and to really be able to open your heart. So anyway, it's just, we're in such a unique time of change and growth, and for each of us, an opportunity with being involved with this wonderful center you have here, and just dynamic things happening, not only the center here, but Temecula, just everything that's going on here, ways to really be involved and to grow spiritually, to make it your own. So, it's interesting when Swami Kriyananda would ask people if they wanted to serve in different ways, because people often would come to Ananda and say, well, one, who's in charge, and two, who tells people, who makes the rules, who tells people what to do, and it never really worked that way, because Swami was just dynamic. He was obviously the only direct disciple of Yogananda that we all knew, and we wanted those teachings. but he also deeply respected each person as a soul. And so, because people, as I said, would say, well, how do you, how does all this work and how does it happen? And I remember I was asked a number of times by Swami Kriyananda to do things, and they were major things. And he would say something like, I thought you might enjoy moving down from your bus in the woods without electricity and running water. I thought you might enjoy moving down to San Francisco and helping direct the center there in the 45-room mansion in Pacific Heights. So it's like, whoa, really, But at the time that happened, I had been living, and Swami knew that, he knew me. I had been living at Ananda for 9 years, absorbing all the teachings, really practicing Kriya Yoga and serving and doing everything I could do. So I was ready, I was ripe to do something like that, to have an adventure like that. And so, I thought, wow, okay, you're asking me to do that, so you must think that I can do it. So I'm going to say yes. Because what an opportunity. What a, can this be more bizarre, that I would move from out in the woods in a bus, literally. I had lived there for 7 years, and no electricity, no running water, into the 45-room mansion. Not only was I there for doing that, it wasn't just me, it was Ram and Diana as well. But still, we were responsible for the 31 people who lived in the house who were new to the spiritual path. Talk about spiritual counseling, and we were all living with each other, and we had Jyotish and Devi had set up the whole framework. It was a wonderful ashram setting that they had created. But we had meals together, we had events there, we had a fun time, and I always like to think it was like pleasure and pain mixed, because we were never quite sure each month if we would be able to pay the rent on the 45-room mansion, because we had to have enough people paying rent to be able to do. So it was, with the great expansion comes that as well. And you have to be willing to take that on. But it's great because, in essence, you have to remember, in the end, it's all God's dream. So why not have fun with it? Why not just go for it and open up? And as long as you feel it's your thing to do. And Swami, again, was very respectful of every person. Many people said no to things that he asked, but I thought, if I can possibly say yes, do, because I know I'll grow from it. I'll grow spiritually. So just to keep in mind those thoughts and ideas, because you're in a very dynamic center, a very dynamic time. Things are growing spiritually, and really the spiritual path, this spiritual path, which is the one I can speak about, because it's the one I've been on, is very powerful and will help you tremendously through the times of change that we are just entering into, and which will continue on for some time, but that we can move through those with the love of God and the grace of God and the gurus.
Measured steps going, candlelight glowing, monks in rows sighing, flickering lights dying, echoes down the years dimly tell of their fears. Gone their chants, gone prayers, leaving cells barrenless. When men's hearts turn from light, what is left but night. When thy truth they profane, what is left but pain? When men's hearts turn from light, what is left but night? Lord, I pray that someday love come back to this land, that men may understand